Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quinten, Krzysko, Samir Patel, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
Welcome in to another episode of Bears on Tap. My name is Quinten Krzysko. I am joined by Ron Luce. And as Ron pointed out in our pre-show here, this is the latest game preview ever recorded from Bears on Tap.
Yeah. How about them apples, man? How about them apples, man? I'll tell you what, Q, I am so stoked, especially after missing last week's preview show. I'm almost jealous that like you and Mr. Shagru and Samir were able to get this thing ready and then watch an epic football game and be on the winning side of it. So it feels good to be on here this week. I am superstitious, but not leading up to the game, only on game days. So my jersey that I wore on Sunday will not be washed and will be reworn next Sunday. But until then, man, I'm thrilled to be here. Again, like you pointed out, I am thrilled to be here on January 13th with you for a game that will be played on January 19th or 18th, whatever the date is, 18th, because it's the latest the Bears on Tap podcast in all of its years of existence has recorded a game preview and subsequently a post-game show. So I'm doing great, man. How are you doing, Q?
I'm doing wonderful, Ron. As you can tell, I don't have my typical background. I am traveling this week for work, so I am in a lovely hotel. But, you know, Ron, I got to ask, what did you do to win that game for the Bears? Because you were on Twitter
what
saying
did I do?
Exercising demons, and you were what happened?
I was telling everybody that I was prepared to sacrifice my soul to the devil for them to win that football game. Okay. I'll tell you what, it was a lot of confidence, I think, too, is where it stemmed from, because like I said, the exorcism of demons. So the tweet was, honey bears, black cats, doesn't matter, we're exorcising demons. They are winning this football game. And because, you know, you hear, I saw something pop up. Somebody sent it to me last week. It was an interview from years ago of the Honey Bears from the 80s. And they talked about how like the Bears, their contract expired after the 85 season and they just let him go. And it's like, you know, you've heard the curse of the Honey Bears. And, you know, Chicago sports fans are used to curses, man. I've heard the goat. I've heard the black cat. I've heard the Honey Bears. I've heard it all. And we were exercising demons because the Bears needed to win that football game. Huh?
Is there a curse of Michael Jordan?
There might be. There legitimately might be.
He didn't exactly leave on good terms with Reinsdorf.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm telling you, man, I think every team in this city has had to break their curses, right? You had the Blackhawks breaking just the unlucky streak of, at the time, it was 61 years since they had won a title in 2010 to take home their first Stanley Cup, and then look what happened. You know, the Chicago Cubs breaking the 108-year curse, right? And this was the laundry list, right? The Billy Goat curse, the Black Cat of 69 curse, you know, Bartman curse, whatever, all of them exorcised, gone. The next one was the Bears. And we kind of talked about it a little bit, Q, I think, you know, in the post-game show, I think even just leading up to that game. And then I think just in general as like a Bears on Tap group, whether it was on or off camera. It would feel sweeter for this team to continue this run, having to beat the Packers. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, makes it satisfying, because now you are no longer the bully that you've been for the last 20 years. This is a competitive rivalry again. And I'm telling you, man, it was an exorcism of demons. There was tequila getting poured on the floor. We were making the circle. No blood sacrifices. Didn't get that extreme. But nonetheless, man, I'm telling you, I was literally walking around amongst the group of people I was with from the beginning of that football game when it was 21-3, saying we're going to win that football game. And this man here in the comments can testify because he was there when it was happening. Good, better, best, indeed. I kept walking around. They're going to win this game. And everybody's like, no, there's no way. I'm like, they're going to win this football game. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm exercising demons. I may or may not have just sold my soul to George Hallis's ghost. Like, a lot of things happened in the course of that game, and it clearly worked. So we might be doing it again this Sunday, Q. It's a hell of a thing. And see, there's my backup. There's my backup.
It clearly worked, Ron. And I have a theory I want to run by you, and I want to pull up my phone because I feel like I put this pretty eloquently or clearly in a group chat the other day, but like I'm not sure if I could recreate that just so easily. But I got some. How do I want to say it? I got some like feedback that there's a belief that Ben Johnson's like constantly trying to set stuff up, right? Like, and that really just dug into that concept right now. And when I saw something about that, like on the timeline, I was like, okay, that kind of confirms what I've been kind of suspecting. Because by the time that Packers game was done, I got a night's sleep and was thinking through it. I was like, I think they're borderline sacrificing the first half to get the looks they want in the second half.
Yeah.
I think they know they don't have the defensive talent to play a full game. They're like, but we can play a half. We can scheme this bitch up for a half and get everything to hit just right, hopefully. Because like the defense doesn't have the talent. Like Kyler Gordon does not have his speed right now. Jalen Johnson certainly doesn't have his speed right now. The injuries have mounted on that secondary. The injuries are mounting in other places too. And I think Dennis Allen is using that same kind of strategy where he's like, if we can keep everything pretty vanilla in the first half and, hopefully limit points, the goal isn't to give up 21 first half points, but it's going to happen when this is your game plan,
Right.
But if we can play everything vanilla and not give them any tendencies to kind of like go on or any good feel for the second half, we can really pounce in the second half on things that they've already shown us. And meanwhile, if the offense can play a ball control style and kill a lot of clock that keeps our defenders fresh, then we really have a chance in the second half to just really hurt them. What does that mean, though? That costs you explosives, right?
True.
They are not explosive in the first half right now on offense. I think that's a big part of the reason behind it. And the way I worded this, I was like, I've either gone full whack job conspiracy theory or there's something to this because I'm fully bought in. Like,
yeah,
the defense only has so many bullets at their disposal. So save them for the second half, use the first half to set up tendencies, and keep some legs fresh. And that's why we see the explosives in the second half too, because we are seeing the offense that sets stuff up in the first half while being more conservative in ball control. Because Ben Johnson is sicko. It's like, well, we're not just going to be conservative. Like we're gonna tee this stuff up for some dingers, right? Like, and I feel like that's what we're seeing. But do you feel that way?
I absolutely do feel that way, and here's why. Q. This is a great example. Your thinking was too hard or way too hard. I don't think you are thinking too hard, Q. Here's why. Somebody eloquently pointed this out on socials after this game. Have you seen the all-22 view of the DJ Moore touchdown at the end of the game?
Yes.
Do you recognize that play?
Mm-hmm. First half, they had a very similar concept. It was like a 10-yard screen to Burton.
It's not even just that, Q. Think about it. They think even further back this season. When the Bears played the Washington Commanders, that was the Luke McCaffrey touchdown play, where they had the tackle over running out to sell screen,
Okay.
and it was the screen and go behind it. And
Yeah.
Luke McCaffrey was wide open on the Bears. Ben Johnson saw that, went back of the brain for later,
Yeah.
and then pulled it out in like the biggest moment of the season to this point. So to your point of Ben Johnson being a sicko, 100%. He used a play that beat them earlier in the season to beat the Packers.
Yeah.
That's the definition of sicko shit. Especially too, because to your point, right? They did a really nice job on the screens early in the game, being able to get Burden, 5 and 10 yards at a clip. Because again, the screen game is an extension of the run game. So that's something that now the Packers have to respect. And we know the Packers love to run that cover 4 shell. They want to keep everything in front of them. So when you force them to get hyper aggressive and come downhill, because we talked about it the last time these two teams played about how, the Packers are so strong downhill. We talked about it with Bobby Peters, right? How these guys, they come so hard downhill. They're so quick. And then you beat them at their own game with a play that beat you 3 months ago for a touchdown. I'm right there with you, Q. The sicko shit's there. Ben Johnson's got a plan for everything, and I'm 100% convinced that at the end of the day, they are trying to do this. And Q, we got some electric comments coming here. John Parker says, needs the Bears to go to the Super Bowl, beat the Donkeys. Okay, can you do that for me? Hey, I hope so. Amy Small here said, plus Rams don't play well on grass, and the Bears being at home certainly helps. And our good friend Seth in the comments. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. He needs this game right now. National Dweebs are saying the Rams by 50. Time to show them what's up. And I tend to agree with Amy here. The Rams are not scoring 50 points. And if they do, the Bears are scoring 51. Seth's been pessimistic all season, Q, but he's a believer now. Certainly not because Kyle Brandt put him on blast. I don't know if anybody saw that, but that was electric. There were a lot of Bears content people that we know that made that video, which was quite fun, including our own Seth Conklin.
What was it?
Oh, you haven't seen it yet. Oh, no. Q.
I've been in work trainings nonstop since Sunday.
Q. Monday morning, Kyle Brandt pulled up on Good Morning Football, and he collected receipts during that Packers game. And amongst the receipts was none other than our very own Mr. Seth Conklin.
Congrats, Seth.
Also included on there, Greg Braggs.
Yeah.
Who I know Greg real well. I think you've gotten to know Greg a little bit as well. He was on there. There was a lot of fans that got put on blast by Kyle Brandt. And he was prepared. He was like, hey, production, just so you know, I'll sit here and do these until we go to commercial. It's totally fine. No problem. He's like, I got plenty of them. It's electric, man. It's funny. It was good, though. But, hey, I'll tell you what. I to your point, Q, I think there's a purpose for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, Ben Johnson does it different than anybody in the NFL in terms of that. Because he's just, I think for him, it's a game. It's a chess match that takes place over 12 plus months.
The only reason I think this thought process is possible is because to be a successful coach, especially play calling coach in the NFL, you literally need to be insane. And if you're an insane person, you believe that you can put a game plan like this together and it will keep working. And it has kept work. The only way that you can execute this is by being insane. And I believe Ben Johnson's just utterly insane.
I agree wholeheartedly, Q. And you know what? That's what I love about Ben Johnson. I like that he's a little crazy.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Ron, you brought up Kyle Brandt, so I do feel like I need to give a big thank you for my Kyle Monungai Angry Run shirt that I got from him in the first half of that game. So thank you to him. Thank you to Homage, who
yeah.
If you look in the description of the YouTube video or the podcast, you can use our code to go get yourself a discount on a nice Bear shirt. Maybe you want the Kyle Monungai Angry Run shirt, which is still available for sale on there. But make sure to use that discount code if you're going to buy anything from Homage anytime soon. But Rob, we got the Rams. We got the Rams coming to town in what is, I believe I saw them say, potentially the coldest playoff game to ever be played at Soldier Field.
Yeah, it's going to be real cold on Sunday. And the later, since the NFL schedule makers graced the Bears with the 5:30 start on Sunday, it's going to be even colder than it would have been if this was a 2:30 game. Yeah, it's going to be up there. I believe they've said it theoretically, temperature-wise, right now would be, I think, top 5 all-time like coldest games at Soldier Field, let alone playoff game.
I mean, that's for a dome team from Los Angeles. I like that.
Mm-hmm. It's another piece of adversity that they have to overcome.
Yeah.
Not to say that they can't, but it's still another wrinkle into the course of this game.
I mean, it's frankly, it's more than a wrinkle. It's huge. Like,
Yeah.
we know Stafford can play in the cold. We've seen it, but like,
Sure.
there's not a team in football that going to the playoffs scared me more than the Rams. There just wasn't. I mean, but when you put them in, 10, 15-degree weather, it becomes a lot more palatable, a whole lot more palatable, because these guys haven't played in that.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't. I gotta pull up their schedule. Like, this is not something that, I mean, even how many cold games has Puka even played in his career? You know,
He probably
can't be
hasn't
that
played
many.
hasn't played a lot of them since his BYU days.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, the BYU, okay, so that's in there. But like this year, they played at Carolina in November. That might have been a little cold. At Seattle in December, again, like, might have been a little cold, but like I doubt it was anything that cold.
Yeah,
Anything
no.
that no. Like, let's see, the Seattle one, 51 degrees.
Beautiful.
They have not. Otherwise, they played at Arizona Dome, at Falcons Dome,
Mm-hmm.
and before that, you were in October talking about Baltimore, maybe, but like, it's not that cold. Like, these guys have not played a game like this year.
No, and ironically enough, the Bears have. They played that Cleveland game. It was. I mean, I think the Cleveland game was colder, and it was windy, and we saw that it didn't matter. And granted, the Rams are not the Browns. This is not apples for apples, but the Bears are built to play in this weather, and they're going to practice in that weather throughout the course of the week as we inch toward the weekend and it gets colder. I think today is supposed to be the nicest day of the week here in Chicago. I believe tomorrow we're supposed to get snow overnight is in the forecast. So it's going to start to drop here in the city of Chicago as we inch closer to Sunday. And you better believe it. The Bears are going to be, out there trying to take care of business. And Ninja Turtle says here, Stafford played in Detroit for so long. Ha ha. They play in a dome too. Did we forget that Detroit doesn't play outside?
Well, and we mentioned, like, we know Stafford can play in the cold, but
Sure.
he hasn't done it in over a year. Like, that does, like, building up those calluses every year does matter some. And also, you mentioned Stafford and Adams there. That's 2 players.
Yeah.
Like, it's 2 very important players, but still 2 players. We're talking about the whole offensive line, the whole defense. Like, every one of these guys is going to matter in a game like this.
100%. 100%. And to Ninja's point, sure, they play the Bears, but Stafford hasn't been in Detroit in how many years now? 4?
Something like that. It's been a
It's
while.
been a while.
Yeah.
And I think, too, let's not forget, he's also playing with a sprained finger on his
Yeah.
throwing hand, which is a real bitch. They said he's good to go. He's going to play, which don't get me wrong. Even as a Bears fan, I have always loved Matt Stafford. I have always enjoyed watching Matt Stafford play football. There's no tougher SOB in the league that's played quarterback, in my opinion. He's going to play through the sprained finger. But when it's cold and you're struggling to get a grip on that football, that's going to be something to keep in mind here
And
as another piece of adversity.
To clarify this, like, we're not sitting here saying they're going to suck because of the cold.
No.
We're saying there is an edge that the Bears get out of the cold that, might make it a bit more winnable for the Bears. It's not like they're going to suck. They're going to be held to 6 points because they can't play in the cold. It's, you might hold them to a few less points than you would otherwise, which gives you a bit more of a chance in this one to really take advantage of it.
Definitely. Again, there's more things there's more pieces of adversity that the Rams have to face that they are not as acclimated to as the Bears are. And not to say the Bears are overly acclimated either, but they've already had experience playing in a number of cold games this season. I mean, that Green Bay game at home at Soldier Field, the first time around in the regular season was cold. They played in Lambeau. Well, that was cold as shit. They played that Cleveland game. I'll testify. I was at that Cleveland game. That game was atrociously cold. I've never opened a beer queue in my entire life and it freezed in 10 minutes. That's how cold it was, that Cleveland game. So like they've had shots at this. And when you're already battered and bruised in the playoffs, like a lot of guys are playing through injuries, that cold just magnifies that pain. And we've seen this all year. The Bears are a team that has been notably we've talked about it on this show, the curse of playing the week after you play the Bears. The final record, I believe, on the season was 2-13-1. They beat the shit out of people. And when it's cold, that plays a bigger factor. You feel each one of those hits more and more and more over the course of a game. It's just another piece of adversity, of your elements, of I think what we can consider somewhat of a home field advantage in this case. Just because the Bears are used to it, don't get me wrong, as a fan, do I want to go sit out in that shit? Absolutely the fuck not. But there's there's multiple elements at play here that the Rams have to keep into consideration besides just your traditional game plan.
Yeah, agreed. But Ron, what do you say we get to our first segment here?
Let's do it.
The baddest man.
All right, Ron. Who is the one guy on this Los Angeles Rams roster that you look at him and you're like, I don't know what you can do about this guy. It's a bad dude.
There's certainly a few names on this team and a lot of guys I really enjoy watching, especially on the defensive side of the football. Like that front 4 to 5 to 6 guys that they have are a blast. I love Poona Ford. I've become a real big Poona Ford truther over the last year or so. I think Seth's got a great answer here in Jared Verse. I mean, he's an incredible football player. There's a reason he was the first defensive pick in his draft class in the first round that year. But I'd be lying to you. There's something about late round receivers who kind of go off the wall in the media that are dogs on the field that kind of scared the shit out of me a little bit. We saw it with Antonio Brown for a long time, right? He was a little off the rails. He said a lot of shit in the general media that a lot of people didn't like, but he was a hell of a football player, and he was really hard to stop. The Rams have a guy like that. Some people say he might be a little, anti-Semitic. There's been some whispers and rumors that he maybe some little things going on. He was a late round draft pick. Puka Nacua scares the shit out of me, especially with a depleted Bears secondary right now in the sense of just guys banged up, not at full speed. Devontae Adams, and I think Seth brought up a good point here. You don't know what Devontae Adams' health is going to be because he missed a few games with a concussion at the end of the season and then took that big lick in Carolina last week on what should have been a caught ball that ultimately was incomplete, and it drew a penalty, but that doesn't turn back the fact he got helmet to helmet after coming back from a concussion. You wonder how on it that he's going to be. But Puka Nacua, we all know what Puka Nacua is. I'm looking for where number 12 is on the field at all times because that dude scares the absolute shit out of me. He's a bad dude. And especially when you start talking matchups, I think he's an even badder dude this week because of just the nature of the Bears secondary right now.
Yeah, it's a great answer. And I mean, evidently Puka is, I don't know, like the Antonio Brown comparison, there's some weird stuff going on with Puka right now.
That's what I'm saying. It kind of fits.
Really saw coming. There were something with him streaming in the locker room too recently.
Yeah, I don't know. And Puka's taken a lot of hard hits in his early part of his career. So there's a lot of AB comparisons, other than the fact that he's a lot bigger than Antonio Brown ever was. But
yeah,
It's a weird parallel, Q, and it kind of scares the shit out of me. There's something about it that it's kind of I've seen this movie before. They just rewrote the plot a little bit, but it follows the same guidelines. That's kind of how I feel about Puka Nacua.
Now, for me, I mean, part of me wants to go Kobe Turner just because he's a guy that, I missed in the draft. I was way too low on him. And ever since his rookie year, I've been like pounding the drum for this guy. Kobe Turner is a bad dude. Like, he is stout against the run. He's quick. He's got burst upfield as a pass rusher. Like, he is a problem at defensive tackle. But I think if I'm going defense, it's got to be, to Seth's point, Jared Verse, right? Bears have a left tackle issue. Jared Verse is going to find ways to eat in this game one way or another. But, I don't think I'm going to go defense. Part of me goes Kyron Williams, product of St. Louis, went to Notre Dame, somewhat of a local guy to that degree, playing in Soldier Field. Like, I expect him to do some good stuff, but ultimately, there's one guy in this roster that scares the daylights out of me, and that is Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
He's the MVP. He's going to win MVP this year. He has like 47 touchdowns or something. Like, this dude is playing lights out. Coming into this year, we weren't even sure that he was going to play. Some back injury, like, held him out all the preseason. Everyone's like, is he going to, like, Stafford's washed. He comes out and throws like 4 touchdowns week 1. It's like, okay, Matthew Stafford is not washed. He looks as good as ever. And he had some issues last week against Carolina. It was hellaciously windy at that stadium. I know I flew into Charlotte on Sunday. My plane it couldn't even land. We had to go to Columbia, South Carolina because it was too windy to land. Like, all the planes got diverted. It was insane wind. And the hurt finger, as Gay mentioned in here, it definitely could matter in this one. But ultimately, I mean, Caleb Williams talks about this guy as someone who he emulates his game after, and it's clear as day. Like, Matthew Stafford is a creative playmaker with a cannon for an arm, and he sees the defense as clear as any quarterback in this league, and he has as good of an offensive scheme around him with talent. Like, there's one guy that scares the daylights out of me, and that's Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I agree with you, Q. Matthew Stafford, a guy I love to watch play football when it's not against the Chicago Bears. But we've gotten the taste of watching Matthew Stafford against the Chicago Bears. We got to do it for a long time when he was in Detroit. And even though the Lions didn't win a lot of those football games necessarily because they just weren't a good team around him, he always had a day. He always found a way to have a good football game and put it together. And you're right. I mean, he's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he's one of the few OGs that's kind of left in this league in terms of, the older quarterbacks. He's still performing at such a high level. I agree with you. He would be my MVP if I had a vote. I mean, he's been incredible. And to your point, yeah, it's funny. I remember before the season, everybody's like, is Matthew Stafford even going to play football again? And then arguably puts up one of the greatest seasons of his career. How weird that is. But yeah, he's a dog, man. That's the number. That's the 9 that scares the shit out of me, not the one up in Minnesota.
9. All right, Ron, who's going to be the baddest man for the Bears in this one?
Oh, Q, I'm gonna have to go with the counterpart at the same position of your baddest man. It's got to be 18, man. It's got to be 18. He's gonna have to show up in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points on the board in this game. I would not be surprised. I don't know what the over/under is right now at the opening. If somebody in the comments would love to look that up for me, you'd be a real MVP. Whatever it is, I'm willing to take that over, even if the elements are cold. I think these guys have to ball out, and especially if the wind is bad, which we know it can be and typically is when it's cold at Soldier Field. You've heard the whole expressions, Q. You mentioned it on this show before, right? About with Mahomes back in the day, about there's certain quarterbacks where the wind no longer plays a factor. Caleb's one of them, and he's gonna have to play like that again. He's gonna have to be fourth quarter Caleb, probably for a little bit more than just the fourth quarter in this game. I fully expect him to have a day. He's gonna have probably one of the best pass rushes going against him that he's seen all season as well on the defensive side. So greased up deaf guy is going to be in full effect. Ozzie Trapillo just got put on the IR today. So it's probably going to be Theo Benedict playing left tackle. God forbid he doesn't do well or gets hurt. It's probably Braxton Jones, who hasn't played since whenever. He's probably going to have to do some greased up deaf guy magic in this game. And he did it against the Packers. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, that fourth down throw, it's replaying in my brain at least 3 to 4 times a day right now, because I see the Air Jordan logo every time I see that highlight. He's gonna have to be the baddest man in this one. So I would almost be embarrassed to not bring up and take 18 in this one, because he's gonna have to be the Bears' best player on Sunday for them to win this game.
He will. And Ron, you mentioned 9, but what's twice as good as 9 and double 9?
18, baby. Let's go.
18. Let's go. For my baddest man, since you already went with Caleb, man, I think that's a great answer. A part of me was thinking a running back here, because the Rams do play a pretty light defense. So I think you can get a downhill run attack on this, or I could go run blocking with that as well, just the run blocking unit needing to be the baddest man here, because I do think they can be gettable on the ground. But ultimately, I mean, I'm looking at these offensive tackles. Alaric Jackson has some of the shortest arms at offensive tackle in the NFL. And Warren McClendon, I don't think he's a guy who I'm really talking very highly about. I'm not sure what the arm length is. I'm actually going to see what that comes in at, because I do think that matters here. Okay, so he has sufficient arm length, 34.5, but ultimately, I'm going to go with Austin Booker. I was going to go with Sweat, but McClendon had, Sweat's going to line up against the right tackle. He has good length, which that's why I was going to go with Sweat, because I was like, the length advantage is huge here. It's not anymore, but Austin Booker has really nice length. Austin Booker has been playing his ass off lately. And going against a Alaric Jackson, who has been, good for the Rams. Legitimately, he has been a solid offensive tackle. You know what? Length plus speed, to me, that is the equation to beat an offensive tackle like Alaric Jackson. And I think Austin Booker's going to have to do that in this game. I think he can do that in this game.
Definitely. And I think Booker had a great game against the Packers. I think you really saw him. He's the type of player, Q. I remember we had this conversation, I believe it was last year, with Darnell Wright. And about, it doesn't necessarily need to be linear, but we want to see improvement at the end of the season from where he was at the beginning. And I think we've seen that. And it almost has felt a little bit linear of late, where he is steadily getting better every game, it feels like, that he's on the football field. And he had a really, really good game this past week. Seth says here, last time he made a big Booker prediction and came true. He's calling it now. He's going to get 3 sacks and a forced fumble. That would be absolutely electric. But again, I think you bring up a great point. Use that length. He's a guy that can get into the chest of offensive tackles. We saw it against Cincinnati on that huge bull rush sack that he had. He's going to need to do it here. And I love that pick, because I think he's a guy that just every week it feels like he gets better and better.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting to look like a problem for offensive tackles, even if it's not every single game, or all the time. It's he has spurts of reps where it's just holy shit, there's some goods in there. It doesn't mean that he's gonna be a star. Hopefully he will, but I'm starting to believe a little more in the Austin Booker potential the more and more I'm watching him this year, because his motor doesn't stop and he has so many physical traits that are just very nice to see.
You can see why the Bears traded back into the draft to take him when they didn't have a 5th round pick that year. You can see why.
Yeah. Now, Ron, let's get to our next segment here.
The nicest man.
All right, Ron. Nicest man. This is the guy that the Rams might, go take out for a beer after the game, be like, man, I owe you one. Who's the nicest man on the Bears this week?
Man, I This one just pains me in general because I look around and I think about where does Puka Nakua feast the most? And believe it or not, he does a fair amount of his work from the slot. You mentioned it earlier in the show. He's not 100% right now, although he's a huge upgrade to CJ Gardner Johnson, in my opinion, even though I think CJ GJ has been fantastic all year. Kyler Gordon has an opportunity here to be the nicest man this week, especially if Sean McVay knows that he's not 100% and attacks him with Puka in the slot or Deontay or Tay Adams in the slot, either one. But one of those guys is going to get some work. I think Nashawn Wright's length plays well against either one of these receivers on the outside if they do get the work there. I think Jalen still has, enough in the tank to put up a fight. I think there's a chance where, we see some of those insert through the B gap, insert through the C gap on a route, and it has to be Kyler Gordon taking him. And I think that's an opportunity where the Rams can do a lot of damage. So for that reason, I hate to say it because I love Spider-Man. But Kyler Gordon is my pick this week, I think, for nicest man for the Bears.
I think that's a fair pick. And the Rams, their offense doesn't terrify you with speed like a lot, like some offenses do, which I feel like works in the Bears' favor a little. But this is a little off topic, but I do think that there is a chance we see a big Tutu Atwell play this game because that's their one real speed. Right? I can see McVay finding scheming something up really nice for him. But I think Kyler Gordon's a good pick here because the Rams, they kill it out of the slot. Whoever's in the slot, they, like you said, it could be Adams. It could be like Puka. It could be a tight end. They've run a ton of 12 and 13 personnel this year. A ton, which is different for them. But they're gonna give you looks out of that slot position to really eat you up. And Kyler Gordon's not 100%. So that's a good pick. For me, you mentioned Theo Benedict starting. I saw a comment from Ben Johnson that was very non-committal on this. Maybe that's gamesmanship, or maybe it means that we might be in store for a Braxton Jones game. I put Braxton Jones in the starting lineup based on that comment here. I think it's a pure toss-up at this moment, like a true 50-50. But if I'm making some assumptions here that Jones is fully healthy, which I think is a fair assumption after the amount of time he missed, that he, has gone through enough rehab where he's confident in his athleticism and his, strength. That one is more iffy. We don't know that. And that he knows the playbook and the concepts well enough to be trusted out there. Because the first 4 games this year when he was playing, it seemed like he did not know the stuff well enough because he missed so much camp. So you can trust him to execute based on what they're seeing in practice. I think he's your starter. But either way, whoever's starting at left tackle is your nicest man because Jared Verse is going to be pounding him all day. And Jared Verse got a lot of power. Jared Verse has a hell of a bull rush. That's Braxton's weakness. Jared Verse also has long arms, and he can beat Theo Benedict around the edge. So, it's a really tough matchup for the Bears at that spot. So that's my nicest man, the Bears left tackle, whoever that might be.
Yeah, great point. It really does feel like it's a week where it's really unfortunate that Ozzie Trapillo got hurt, especially such a terrible injury too. A torn patellar tendon is nothing to fuck with. So the fact that not only do you lose him, but then there's also question marks about next year when the season starts, if he's going to be fully healthy or not. That's a tough blow to come from that Packers game. And to your point, though, Q, no matter who you play at left tackle, Jared Verse has something in his bag of tools that plays really well against that guy's weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And it's going to make for there's going to be a big magnifying glass over at the Luce household over here, keeping an eye on what's going on over at that left tackle spot over the course of the game.
Well, and even we've seen, the Bears get aggressive with a slot receiver trying to hammer down an edge and stuff. Jared Verse is a fucking brick house.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Like I'll be like happily surprised if I can see a slot receiver push it. Like they did it to Myles Garrett. It's like you can do it to anyone with the right angle, but like that's a brick house right there, man. Jared Verse is a tough dude to for a tight end, for a receiver to actually make much of an impact on. And you mentioned Ozzie, and I think we need to touch on that a little bit, given our O-line background. No O-line show this week, unfortunately, due to my employment and my people who sign my paychecks. I just don't have the time for it this week. But Ozzie, man, I'm so disappointed on that injury. And it's not just because he's not here this week. It's because I've said this on X. I've said it like in my articles. I've said it many times. I was very excited to see what Ozzie could do to improve his lateral burst with a full offseason of training. Because, last season he's trained for the draft. He's not trained for any specific item within his toolbox. Mm-hmm. I thought if he dedicated his offseason to gaining more lateral bursts without losing mass or without losing much mass, it could be huge for his game and it could really go a long way. And now we won't see that. Even if he does return for week 1, we'll see the same thing that we've seen essentially from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, it is a real bummer because, and especially too, I mean, I've seen a lot of discussion around a torn patellar tendon and how like it's such a freak injury that we really don't hear a lot about, but there's been a couple of guys that have suffered it all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere. It's a hard injury to come back from. And I think that's the part that scares me the most. It's because you invested a second-round pick in Ozzie Trapillo. He was improving immensely. And to your point, Q, this is an offseason that would have been massive for him to take that second step forward. And now you don't have it because of this injury. And that is an absolute bummer when it's all said and done. Q, one quick comment I thought that was good here, though, from Seth, not to totally change subject, but he is expecting a ton of 13 personnel from Ben Johnson to account for Jared Verse. And I think that's a great point as well. We might see some Colston Loveland chips and Cole Kmet chips maybe instead of DJ Moore and Rome Dunze and Luther Burden, which is a good point. But yeah, man, it's like, don't get me wrong. It sucks losing TJ Edwards to an extent. You never want to see anybody get hurt here. You never want to see anybody get hurt, but I think to your point, like we know what TJ Edwards is at this point in his career, right?
Yeah.
The fact that now you could potentially watch Ozzie Trapillo's growth get stunted a little bit is really, really disappointing because he was starting to put a lot of good shit on tape.
Yeah. And note on the graphic, TJ Edwards will not be starting at linebacker. He's out. I missed that on the graphic. We have DeMarco Jackson should be starting. And I think he gives you more speed at the position, which is something that I thought helped last week in the second half. So sucks to have a loss, but like I am glad that we have a Jackson behind him who's a very strong backup there. And point from Seth here too. Rams tight ends have accounted for 18 touchdowns this season. That's not a small number.
No, that is not a small number.
But Ron, who you got for your nicest man on the Rams?
Oh man, I mean, I'm gonna feel like I got to take the low hanging fruit here. The only real spot on this Rams defense that gets cooked is corner, specifically Elijah Forbes. And even then, like you look at this defense, and there really are no weaknesses. And I think what they do on defense is spectacular. I think their system is awesome. I've watched a lot of, believe it or not, I've actually watched a lot of defensive Rams content in the recency before this matchup, just because I thought it was curious because they are such a fascinating team. Like they defy logic in the sense of how they play defense. To your point earlier, Q, a lot of lighter personnel groupings. They play an absolute shit ton in the nickel and dime. Like that's where they almost live out of exclusively.
Really small.
But they do such a great job though with that front six to at least can maintain the run game. They don't necessarily dominate it, but they minimize your ability to really gash them with the run game. And then that's what allows them to play that smaller system, making it harder to, open things up and really take some deep shots. I think that's where in this game, though, to Seth's point, we see a lot of 13 personnel. Maybe we see a lot of Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland involved in the game plan. I fully expect those two to be big targets this week because of the size mismatch and what they can bring in the pass game over the middle against some smaller defenders. But I look at the graphic. There's only literally 2 places on this graphic that are red. Kanata Mumfield doesn't get a lot of work. To your point,
it could be Mumfield, it could be Atwell, it could be Xavier Smith. They all play a pretty equal amount of snaps.
Exactly. So I think at the end of the day, I got to go with that cornerback too. I think whichever Bears receiver gets the opportunity to work against Forbes needs to win and win a lot, whether that's Adunze, whether that's Moore, whether that's Burden. I think the Bears have the horses to combat that and get some of those matchups. Somebody's going to have to eat, though, because I think, the only weakness on their defense is cornerback too.
I mean, Ron, are you considering putting Loveland out there to body him?
Yeah, you could.
One of the greatest players in the NFL.
I mean, they did it this past week. Look at that, the 2-point conversion play. The Bears got the personnel grouping they wanted. You had an excellent matchup. Or as I don't know if you saw from Bussin' with the Boys, but Will Compton, Greg Olson, and Taylor Lewan talked about it. It was the milk on milk crime is what they called it. But that was a one-on-one that the Bears wanted to get, and they got it. I wouldn't be shocked again. Like Q, I'll be honest with you. I know we did our baddest men already, and we took Austin Booker, and we took Caleb Williams. But if I had to pick a third guy to make up for the lack of a third co-host today, I think Colston Loveland's that dude, because to me, he's the biggest X factor wild card in this game for the Bears offensively. I think you have to match him up where you can against some of these smaller linebackers and DBs, because that's where you're going to get those matchups to try and win. Because like MJ50 said, like we just brought up, their defense is weird. They have one of the highest amounts of dime because of how good that front four is at all times. They can afford to play in a lot of dime packages and only have one linebacker sometimes on the field. And Landman's been great. So, I mean, they get their money's worth out of him. Literally, they just extended him right before the end of the season. But I think, to your point, Q, I think that's an excellent point that you bring up here of, maybe you do take some calculated risks and put Loveland out wide and say, we're just going to body you with size because we can.
Yeah, I think that there's a real chance we see that happening here. Now, for my nicest man, Ron, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that our friend Scott from Iowa is not in the chat for this one.
Oh, boy.
Because I defended this guy a lot last year. And a lot of what I said was when he is flanked by two monsters like Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson, he looks a lot better. But when he's not, he looks like what the Bears got last year at center. This is Coleman Shelton I'm talking about. And I expect the Bears defensive tackles to have a pretty good idea on how to beat Coleman Shelton. They saw him in practice a lot last year.
True.
The Bears run a lot of stunts. If they can divert the help away from Coleman Shelton to create one-on-ones, they should take that opportunity over and over again. I think he has to be your nicest guy here. You have to find ways to create those one-on-ones against Coleman Shelton, against whether it be Billings, whether it be Dexter. I think Grady Jarrett is built extremely well to beat up Coleman Shelton. Whether it be Sweat on a stunt, I think there's a lot of ways to beat him. And I think that with the way that the Bears try to crush the pocket and use bull rushes often up the middle, I think they need to find ways to disrupt Matt Stafford up the middle there. And Coleman Shelton is the route to do that.
Bears legend Coleman Shelton.
And hey, I defended Coleman Shelton a ton last year. I think
did.
Coleman Shelton was a quality center, but he has weaknesses. And I think the Bears D-line happens to have some strengths where those weaknesses are, even if there's very few strengths on this defensive line.
Q, I'll tell you what, as a former player myself, when you practice against these guys 3 times a week and your teammates, you know the whole bag of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
that your teammate's going to throw at you. And you would have to almost throw them off, like even if it was outside of your game sometimes, to get some wins in practice. And I know the NFL doesn't practice like collegiate or high school teams do, but it's still the same concept. You still got to win your one-on-ones. They still do one-on-one drills. You're 100% spot on. These guys have seen a lot of Coleman Shelton. They know what he can do and what he can't do. And I'm sure DA is looking at that right now and licking his chops maybe a little bit and telling these D tackles, hey, we're going to need to find pressure up the middle because we might not be able to generate a ton of it on the outside. And that's where, maybe you can run that pick stunt. You take Shelton off his path, and maybe that's where a blitzing DeMarco Jackson can come into play too, or a blitzing Kyler Gordon, or, whoever you decide to dial up and get cute with, a blitzing Jaquan Brisker, where those guys can potentially get in Matthew Stafford's face. Thankfully, Matthew Stafford is not the most mobile quarterback in the world. I think that's the one thing that maybe helps the Bears in this case. You don't have to worry about him getting outside the pocket. Don't have to worry about him extending too many plays. He's going to do it a little bit just because I think he's a good enough athlete. But if you're able to bring significant pressure up the middle, that's going to make that a lot harder for Stafford on Sunday.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have access to my grades from last year. I was just trying to look this up. I don't know what I graded Shelton in the game against the Rams last year. I feel like he had a rough game, which is telling to your point of when you play a full season with one team, you see them get on the other side. They tend to know you pretty well. And I think the Rams last year did know Coleman Shelton pretty well when the Bears faced the Rams. Now we're seeing the opposite of that.
Yeah, they felt bad for beating his ass so badly that they said, hey, come back. We liked you. We loved having you. You fit our scheme well, and we'll give you a little bit of a pay raise too on top of it. So.
Yeah. But Ron, what do you say we get to our final segment before we close this thing out?
Let's get after it.
Keys to victory.
All right, Ron, what's the key to victory for the Bears in this game?
Oh, man, it's going to be a weird one, and it's very situational. But for just my gut is telling me that this is going to be the case because we've seen it time and time again with this Bears team, especially late in the season against really good opponents. You got to have the ball last. I think that's a huge key to this game because I think we have San Francisco Bears level ability of where this game could go in terms of the back and forth. Don't get me wrong. The Rams have a great defense, but I firmly believe there's a chance, especially in the second half when these two sides adapt and adjust and really try to take it to each other. I think whoever has the ball last is going to win this football game. So for me, I think the Bears need to have the football last. Have the ball last, have the game in your control. You control the clock, you control the outcome. And hopefully that includes a victory in either a trip to Seattle or staying put for a Week 17 rivalry on your own turf. Got to have the ball last because I don't expect this game to be a blowout in either direction.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, and I'm thinking I'm with you on that. I think this game is coming down to the last possession of the game. I think if the only way it doesn't if the Bears just can't they get down early again and they can't muster it all the way back. But outside of that, I think the Bears have the ball last. They're within one touchdown. That's where I'm hoping that we see it go. For me, I'm touching a little bit on our nicest man segment. Gotta manufacture pressure up the middle. You have to. It's the only way you're going to fully stop this offense this week, I think. And you combine that with maybe a little bit of the element of the cold, a little bit of the element of the turf. Something I think you might be able to get some stops when you need them. And we're cooking with gas. That's my primary key of the game is manufacturing pressure up the middle of the Rams offense.
I like that. Q, I got another one for you since we're short a few co-hosts today. I think another key one, especially for the first half, is going to be drain the clock, control the football on the ground. I think the Bears' ground attack more than any game this season is going to be most important in this one. Ground and pound. Most importantly, physically beat the shit out of the Rams in the first half. Wear down that D line so they can't rush as effectively in the second half. Wear down those small linebackers so they're not able to initiate that hard hitting first contact, and your running backs can get those extra yards after contact. They have to control the clock in the first half and just beat the living piss out of this smaller Rams defense. Because if you're able to do that, that's where you can set up what we've seen Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen thrive on a lot of this season is a really strong second half and putting teams away. They have to be able to beat the piss out of this Rams team, just physically run the football, control the clock, and just physically dominate them in the first half. So that way, even if it is a tight game, 10-7 or 13-10 or something in that realm of possibility, you're able to come out with your horses in the second half, and you're the more rested team because you're the one delivering the impact, not the other way around in this brutal cold that's expected on Sunday.
Yeah, and to your point, just to add on to that key, like the offensive line has been a little bit iffy run blocking the last few weeks. They haven't been the same unit that we saw like mid-season.
True.
That needs to change this week.
Agreed.
If the Bears want to win this game, their offensive line needs to be a dominant run blocking unit. And they have been at times this season. Last couple games, it's been questionable.
Agreed.
I need to see the Philly effort. The Black Friday game in Philadelphia was one of the best run blocking games I've ever watched. They throw out an effort like that, they will win this game.
I agree. Well said, Q. Yeah, again, play bully ball. I know it's been a key of ours throughout the course of the season. I think it sums up both of our points in a simplistic sense, and maybe not fully accurate, but simplistic. Just be the bully. Bring the temperature to them instead of the other way around. Because I genuinely believe the team that's the more physical football team in this game is going to win. That's just what my gut's telling me as of Tuesday night for a Sunday game.
Yeah. Ron, what's your prediction?
Oh, see, it was so nice not having to do this against the Packers. Oh, my God. Did anybody get it right? That's a better question. I mean,
Packers
28 is like a very, or 31-27 is a very like believable prediction. You know what I mean?
I think we were all a little lower on it on total.
A little less scoring.
Yeah. Like we were right around the deficit, like the point differential, but like the total was, I think we were all a little lower.
Okay. Shit, man. There's two directions I feel like this game could go. This game's either like 20-17 or this game's like 42-35. I'm going to settle somewhere in the middle. Somebody's missing a kick in this game for an extra point because I think the wind's going to be swirling. I'm going to say Bears 34, Rams 30.
Okay. I was thinking, I don't know. This is just my gut. Bears 29, Rams 27.
No, so close.
I don't know where that number. I don't know where that number comes from. I don't know how you get to 29, but hey, it just feels right.
Just feels right, man. 38-17 Bears is what Nightmare 2 says here. I will say this, like, let's not forget, and this is not a shot at this team because they still made the playoffs, but like, son of a bitch, the Carolina Panthers put up 31 points on this Rams defense.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for heroics of Matt Stafford in the second half.
Twice.
Twice. That's a great point.
31 points in both games.
If I'm Ben Johnson, I'm looking at some of that concept for sure. They're a beatable football team. Like they're great. They're a great football team. Don't get it twisted. But they're a beatable football team. The 29-27 is going to haunt me now, Q. I hope you understand that.
So, well, I said, wait, why is it going to haunt you?
because I'm going to be thinking about it until Sunday.
What if how ways that could happen?
Because that for some reason that number is screaming in my head of like that could happen.
Yeah, like the Rams were my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl. I like the Rams. If they get out of this game, they're still my pick to win the Super Bowl. But they at Soldier Field in mid-January, they can be beat. So let's fucking do it, Ron.
This feels like redemption for 2018 all over again, because this was what everybody said about that Eagles Bears game. It was like, if they get through and they play the Rams, they got to come back to Soldier Field and play in the cold again, which they didn't do well during the regular season.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see, man. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we'll find out Sunday, Ron. Why don't we get out of here with a bear down, and we'll talk to everyone after the game.
Whew, bear down, baby.
Bear down.